Here I'm going to be removing the front and rear sights. I try to start off when removing the sights with something non too aggressive. Currently here I have a carbon fiber rod. I just want to prevent any damages to the front and rear sights. Notoriously, factory sights are a little bit harder to get on and off than they should be. So here we go. We're going to give this a shot and see if they remove. I do apologize if the camera shakes. I don't have a real stable platform. Now you will notice that I do have the slide in a set of soft jaws to prevent any damage. And on occasion I will, when I put these in there, I'll rotate it to what suits my needs. Now, I did a few bumps with the carbon fiber rod. Didn't seem to be doing anything, but I will give it another shot here. Not really moving, so I have to step up my game a little bit. I'm going to use a piece of stainless steel rod. It doesn't have the give that and that doesn't want to move either. Double check this, see if it's moving or not. It is not really moving. So here is the final shot. It's finally moving, not particularly like I want to. There we go, finally got that one out. That sight's removed, but you can see there is a little damage. That is part of the problem with factory sights. They're usually pushed on there with a machine. Being that these aren't any kind of tritium or fiber optic insert, I may end up recoating these and just redoing the white dots in the dot of the sight. So that is one sight down, one to go. Hopefully the rear will be a little bit easier, but that's not always the case. And when I go back to put these sights on, I will use a little better method to the sights don't need to be that tight. They just need to be able to not move, and when you have to basically bang the crap out of them with a with a mallet. It's not typically as tight as they should be. I'm having some difficulty finding the right set screw. I'm going to take a look at this. Hang on. I don't know if you can see it, but inside here there's a little clear plastic liner or housing to the striker. Now, in order to get this out, you want to get you a little, I use this little O-ring pick or use this very small screwdriver, and you'll depress that towards the end of the barrel, the forward end of the slide, I'm sorry, and then you'll slide this rear cover, start sliding it off. Don't slide it all the way off. Leave it on there a little bit to prevent anything from flying out at you. And I usually just cover it with my hands. It's not always that something's going to fly out, but better on the err on the side of caution. That is the slide end plate. There's the striker assembly. Now, because this is getting Cerakoted and the oven cured temperature for Cerakote is 300, there is a firing pin channel liner that is inside here. This is a tool. This is, I don't know if it's going to work on this one. This one is made for the Glocks. It's threaded. It bites into the firing pin channel liner. You just tighten it up with a couple little turns. Start screwing this wing nut down, and it will, if it works right, start pulling that liner out. The last thing you want to do is, even if you're doing this at home, is to melt your liner and have to get a new part. Now, a lot of times once this starts coming out, it'll get a little bit easier, and once you get it partially out, usually comes on out, but this time it didn't. So I'm gonna have to get another bite on it. At this point you can see the liner starting to come out, and that is what you want. Otherwise, unless you know the thermal rating and everything for this particular piece of plastic, and this one does not want to come out. There is something that is catching it. Not sure what. I am going to look at it a little bit. See what the issue is. I may be able to put a very small Allen wrench in the end of where the firing pin comes out. It's a possibility. And push it the rest of the way out. And that did it. There's your firing pin channel liner. If you leave that in when you're Cerakoting, more than likely you're going to melt it. Then you're going to get aggravated because you have to wait 3 or 4 more days for a new part to come in. Now to the extractor. Extractors are pretty self-explanatory. If you have the right size roll pin punch, you definitely want to use that. There she blows right there. There's your roll pin for the extractor. We're going to get it started just with a few taps. If the hammer you got is too big, just grab another one. It's easier, better to use small light punches Just use the weight of the hammer and it will come out. Don't know if you can see that part, but that is it. Now that I will keep my thumb over the extractor while I do that, there is a spring behind there. Extractor comes out. There is the extractor. And the extractor spring. Now at this point the barrel is completely stripped, and I'm going to put it in the bin, wait for the next step. In this one, I am also going to be doing the mag base. Most people know how to do this. You'll just depress this, push that forward, keep your thumb on the spring, and remove that. Now to the fun parts. First thing I'm going to do is look inside, make sure there's nothing broken, make sure everything looks good. If there's any issues, I have function test this prior to disassembly. I did not fire it, just function test it. But I also want to make sure that there's no broken parts. If there's broken parts, make sure that the owner is notified, and that way you're both covered. Your customer will not be mad, and you can proceed with the project. Okay. First two pins I'm going to take out are this rear pin, which will hold the rear part of the trigger assembly or the fire assembly. We're going to remove this pin. This pin is apparently a two-sided. It has, well, not two-sided, but one side is larger than the other. So these are things you want to check. So I'm going to remove this and just see how easy it starts. Sometimes they're easy, sometimes they're not. If they're easy, I push them out with my hand if possible. Now this one particular, it has a, if I'm not mistaken, it has a little tapered part, or not tapered part, but a section of the inside of the pin that is a different diameter than the main part of the pin. And when we do that, what you're having to do, it may feel like the pin is a little bit harder to get out, even though it's moving easy. What you're having to do is jump it over that little detent area. So you just give it a little whack, and there it goes. Well, this one did not have, it was just a little bit tight, but it didn't have the little detent area in the center. Now also pay attention to the orientation of your springs. If there's springs inside there, to make sure that the spring, if you have to, take a picture of it. I do that quite frequently, because you can't remember all the guns all the time. See if I can find a better position for this. I can't right now, so I'm going to get it started on the rubber mat. So a lot of times once these get started, you'll see that it is started, it's coming out. Then you can work it the rest of the way. It allows you to put it right up against the corner instead of guesstimating. And then when you get to that point, you're going to find a hole that corresponds with what you're trying to do. That way the pin will drive through. Still needs a little more. This is where I get to the pliers. And out it comes. That is in fact a true roll pin. So you want to look at some of those things when you're disassembling. Now I have pretty much got most of this out. I'm going to remove the takedown lever, and once you get it out, you just twist it a little bit. You'll see there's a little detent in there. Now it is time to look some more. I'm going to be removing this front pin next. This does look like a roll pin. This one will be coming out. Put it on the table, give it a little start. Once I get it started, get it to my block. Finish the tapping. There is the next pin. Now that is the last pin. It is time to start removing the rest of the assembly. This, I'm just going to use a flathead screwdriver. Just put a little bit of pressure. You don't want to put so much pressure on this piece that you damage your polymer frame when this comes out, and then that'll just come out. And the rest of this will pretty much fall right out. Okay. There is your trigger assembly. This is the spring that you needed to pay attention to, the orientation. So when you go back, this little piece here acts as the detent for the takedown. There is your slide lock lever. This is an insert here. This spring, this will be removed prior to Cerakoting. I don't know if you can see it in the film in the video. This spring will be removed. Your trigger assembly. This will stay as one assembly when I'm Cerakoting, but to prevent any sandblasting of other than the composite, this will be taped off. Okay, this, if I'm not mistaken, is pain in the butt part. Okay, you're going to take this little key that is on the butt end of the pistol grip, I'm sorry, and once you take this little key out, this grip will come off. Now, I will very possibly leave this in place when I'm Cerakoting, because the temperature is fine, but I don't want any shrinkage or warpage, so I will leave it retained on the grip when I get ready to take that out. Now I'm going to come in here and just put a little pressure, just a little bit, start prying that up. Carefully take that out. Slowly, slowly, slowly. That way I don't lose any of the parts. This is internal. This will not be Cerakoted. It'll stay just like it is. But because some of the pins are loose or slip fit when they're inside, I will not take that apart, and I will be very careful. If you can see it, in here is a little rod, I doubt you could see it, that acts as a spring for the mag release. You're going to pry it to one side, pop it out of the little groove, grab you a pair of needle nose pliers, and pull it out. Once you get this out, looks like my good needle nose pliers are missing. I do not really want to leave that in there. I can go ahead and remove the sight by moving that pin out of the way. I'm not talking to the sight, I'm stupid. Using something, a tool, to pry that spring around and out of the way, and that mag release will drop right out in most cases. Sometimes it takes a little doing, but there it is. That is out. And if I'm not mistaken, this is an ambidextrous trigger, so you could put it back in the same way, in the opposite way, for somebody that shoots left-handed. Now, if I can't seem to find my other needle nose. If I can grab it with this big pair of pliers, I am going to. Okay, that pin does not want to come out, so I am not going to force it. It's not going to be heated to a temperature that's going to melt it, anything, so it will just stay on during the process. Now that we have that, the frame is completely ready for sandblasting, Cerakote, prep for the next process. The next process I will be doing will be getting everything wired and hung and ready to go into the sandblaster for the prep for the coating. Here you can see I've got all the parts ready to go to the sandblaster. This project will be done in 2 different oven cycles. The composites do not cure as high of a temperature as the metal parts, so you can't do just everything at once. You need to really do it in separate oven cycles. And at this point, everything, you can see everything's stripped, everything's ready to go. These are all the composite pieces. Everything will be sandblasted. These little holders, I just make these out of welding wire that I have laying around. These I really like. I made these using some welded wire and alligator clips, and they work great. Of course, over a period of time, they do get a little abuse. They get sandblasted and wore down, so you have to, but you replace them when they do that. But I've been using these in the neighborhood of 2 or 3 years and haven't had to replace them yet, but they are getting to a point where some of them don't have as many teeth left on them, on the clips. But this is at the stage of the ready for powder coat or sandblasting. I'll take these to the sandblaster. I use 100 grit aluminum oxide or 120 grit aluminum oxide, and then they'll be coated. I'll do these and then I'll show you what they look like after they've been sandblasted. Okay, I am back. Here we have all the parts have been sandblasted, ready for the Cerakote to be applied. You can tell they've got kind of a dull gray appearance that is the result of the sandblasting. Actually, composite and plastic parts are harder to sandblast correctly due to the fact that it just doesn't show as well. You have to be careful when you're blasting in order to make sure you have a complete coverage. And usually once you take the parts out of the blaster, you blow them off real well. You want to try not to handle them with your hands to get any grease on them. You'll be able to tell when something is, when you have missed a spot, and you have the opportunity to go back and re-blast it. But these parts are ready for the coating. This will be done in 2 stages. Here we're going to do what I call the inserts, these inlet areas where the texture is a little bit different. These are going to be isolated with a different color than the frame, so they will be sprayed with that color, flash cured. Once the flash cure is complete, that's usually, you know, about 15 to 30 minutes. It just depends. Then those areas will be taped off, and then the secondary color will be sprayed and put back in the oven for a flash cure. When the flash cure is complete, the tape, which is a heat resistant tape, it's not like we're using a painting tape or anything like that. It is a specially designed tape that will not melt. It doesn't add the glue residue, you know, it doesn't leave that all on there, so it will be removed for the final cure, which is 200 degrees at, 180 degrees for 2 hours, and then these parts will be done. Sometimes I do use a masking tape, and a lot of the reason I use the masking tape, it is a little more flexible around corners, and it doesn't, it's only in the oven for 15 to 30 minutes at 180, so it doesn't transfer the glue residue to the other part. And it's, you know, but it's in the hard to reach areas when your heat resistant tape, which is a little bit stiffer, not quite as flexible in the tight contours, and it just makes for an easier application. So now it's time to do that. I'll show you once the tape is applied after the first flash cure. I'll show you the parts to how I'm going to do that to get ready for the next.
You watch your ass.
Okay, we're back after the first coat of the accent color, which is going to be the tactical gray, and these parts are taped off. They are ready to be sprayed with the secondary color, which is the black, the graphite black to be specific. And as I mentioned before, you do have some trouble. This heat resistant tape isn't made to bond really well, so contours make it a little difficult. So you do have to apply a little bit of extra pressure to the areas. Make sure nothing's going to peel off when you spray. Of course, when we're spraying, we're not spraying a ton of air pressure. We're only spraying between 24, 25 pounds in that general area. So these two parts are going to be sprayed in the graphite black. We've got the frame, and we've got the mag base. Now when these two get sprayed and we peel this off, we're going to flash cure it for about 15 minutes and then take the tape off and do the final cure to finish out the 2 hours. And we'll let you see them after they're done. Okay, now we are ready to, you can see we've got all the metal parts are wired and ready to go into sandblasting. What I do here on the barrel is I have heat resistant plugs that will not melt with the heat of the oven. I will poke a piece of welding wire through there, plug usually the chamber in, run another piece of wire, or run the wire through, plug up the exit to the barrel end, and just use my typical alligator clips welded to a piece of wire. On the frame itself, I have a piece of wire running through the hole where the firing pin will sticks out when it's fired, and running through that end and holding with a piece of wire. That way I can paint all sides of it, have access to all corners, all the internals, and everything will be coated properly, and it doesn't interfere or make a spot where the paint won't be visible. Well, actually not paint, but the Cerakote won't be visible. So these are ready. That's my next step, and that's what I'm going to go do now.